Hey, everybody, welcome back to another episode of the Flip Genius podcast. Excited today to have on Dan Ahlborn, who is also a real estate investor, buddy of mine. We're in a similar, the same mastermind group, which has been great. Shout out to Tom Kroll and Coaching Inc.
The best, yeah.
Dan is also a real estate investor, but also on the information side of the business, does some coaching. So, Dan, welcome. Thanks for joining us today.
Hey, Brandon, I'm excited to chat with you, man. As we were talking before, I mean, I just love talking to other guys in the space, and just it's always good convo, finding out what's working in the business, and just kind of just chalking it up a little bit. So I'm ready to chat.
Yeah, well, thank you. I'm excited too. Excited to hear more about you and what you have going on these days. So, why don't you start out? Kind of give us a background, what you were doing before you got into real estate, and what kind of led you into real estate.
Yeah, the real estate thing has always been kind of in my blood. I think we all kind of have the origin story of real estate. For me, it was a Carlton Sheets course.
Okay,
No
old
money
school.
down on one of the granddaddies of them all, right?
Yeah,
I was so poor back in the day that I actually borrowed it from a friend, right? He had gotten it. So I read a lot about like, oh, you can buy real estate, no money down. And that was awesome because I had no money. So I was his ideal client, right?
yeah,
So I was kind of looking into that. And then I through my discovery process, I learned about wholesaling. And
okay,
I'm like, ooh, I like this even better because now I don't even have to buy the property. Because at the time, I'm like, well, how can I buy properties? I have no cash. I mean, you and I understand that today. It's like, bro, you don't need cash to buy properties, right? You just find the
right,
deal.
yeah,
But I got into that, bought a box of signs, did some bandit signs, and lo and behold, before he knew I had $1,000 wholesale on my hand that I was scared crapless to know what to do with, right? So I
yeah,
failed forward and wholesaled that. And truly, that's when the light switch went off. Getting that
Hmm.
first deal under your belt really kind of gives you a little bit of the confidence. And at the time, I was still working a 9 to 5. I was doing an inside sales job with the company.
Okay,
And, it was kind of just, I was treating like a hobby, truthfully, early on.
yeah,
Whenever I needed some extra cash, I'm like, oh, buy a box of signs, throw it out there. And lo and behold, and to this day, it almost rings true. Like whenever I sat out a box of signs, 100 signs, double-sided, 18 by 24 Choreoplast, simple, we buy houses, I would get at least a deal off of one
Hmm.
box of signs. So it's like
Yeah,
$500 investment. And that back then I was maybe making 5 to 10K rip off a wholesale, right? So I'm like,
okay,
that's pretty good.
yeah,
But the problem is I never saw the consistency.
hmm,
And what I realized, Brandon, is that early on in my life, and I didn't know this till later, I had a lot of self-limiting beliefs. My child upbringing has its own story, but for the lack of getting into that, I didn't have a lot of great mentors in my life that could show me
hmm,
how to handle money, how to appreciate money. I almost had a fear of it, right? Because no one in my family ever had it. And I just had a lot of personal things. I was overweight as
hmm,
a kid, a lot of things that I just didn't feel very self-confident myself. So
yeah,
we know in this business that it's not if, but when a problem's going to come.
yeah,
Every deal is a learning experience, right? So, what would happen is I would get to that problem and then I would just stop
hmm,
and I would shut her down. And it would take me a few months to get myself back going again. And I
hmm,
guess the real precipice of this was I got to the point in time where here I am marketing for properties off market and foreclosures and all the distressed people. And I ended up being one of the guys on the list, right? So
hmm.
my home was basically going to be going to sheriff's sale. And
Wow,
luckily for an amazing friend of mine, gave me 5K to get out of the hole at that point in time. And I realized I never wanted to have that feeling again. So that's when I
yeah,
started taking the business a little bit more seriously. So fast
okay,
forward, I now run a business. It's a complete virtual wholesaling business. I
okay.
live here in beautiful Southwest Florida. So as the rest of the country is freezing their cheeks off, we got a balmy 73 and sunshine right now and loving it. But I run my business completely in Wisconsin. So I've not stepped inside of home
Okay.
in quite some time. So we have systems, processes, and people that allows us to have a scalable business to be able to have the lifestyle and a business.
So you live in Southwest Florida.
Mhm.
Where about in Southwest Florida?
We're just in the Fort Myers area.
Okay. We have a place in Siesta Key, Sarasota area.
Nice.
So,
Yeah, just north of there.
um,
Gotcha.
yeah, love it down there. We were there for Thanksgiving. The weather's amazing.
Yeah.
85 degrees on hanging out on the beach the week of Thanksgiving. In fact, It's not freezing in Georgia where I am, but it's a little bit chilly, so we may go back down for Christmas too. But love it down there. Okay, so you mentioned that you're operating in Wisconsin.
Yes, sir. Yeah.
So you're doing virtual wholesaling though, is that right?
Correct. Yeah. We
Okay.
basically are buying them quote unquote sight unseen. We contract first and verify second.
Okay. Is that only in Wisconsin, or are you operating in other areas outside of that
Well,
market?
oddly enough, 25 has been a year of a little bit of expansion. So the natural thought was I moved down here a little over a year ago that we were going to do some stuff here in Florida, but the market has
Hmm.
shifted pretty dramatically down here.
Yeah.
There's been more of the Florida flight. More people are leaving than coming in for a variety
Yeah.
of reasons. I think you had three big storms a year ago, interest rates, who knows?
Yeah.
Everyone's always going to want to live in Florida. I mean, heck, if they eliminate the state uh, property tax, which sounds like it's going to happen, you're going to be in a state with no state income tax and no property tax. That's pretty enticing,
Yes.
right? You have to be a
It
homesteader,
is.
but heck, you got to live here 51% of the year. Not a bad deal.
Right.
So that being said, we were going to do investing down here, but realized wasn't as conducive, and we're really beginning to scale and grow in our own business in Wisconsin. I thought it was
Okay.
going to be a hindrance, so we pulled back. Actually, at the last second, I had all the data. We even inadvertently started cold calling and doing some things, and got a handful of leads down here. But I just realized it wasn't worth my time. So yeah, we do everything in Wisconsin,
Okay.
and we have, like I said, we leverage a lot of technology. We leverage systems and people. And I'll be the first guy to tell you, like, I never thought I could do, virtual wholesaling. I was always the belly to
Hmm.
belly guy. I was the guy like, you get me in front of a seller across a dining room table,
Yeah.
and I had a pretty high degree of closing that deal.
Yeah. Yeah, that's great. I have the opposite problem. I'm the belly to belly guy. We do all in-person
Yeah,
appointments. I have loved the idea of virtual wholesaling, but I'm also so scared of it that
yeah,
I've never really, I mean, I've tried to do it kind of halfway a few times,
sure.
taken a few basic steps. But for different reasons, the pictures that I would get from the seller, as an example, were three pictures, and I would say, no, I need more. They wouldn't respond. So I'm sure in your business and what you teach other people, you have ways of handling all that. But I never really did it. We still do face to
Yeah.
face appointments.
Well, I think there's pros and cons to both. And I almost say this, Brandon, I think as we turn into 26 with the leverage of AI.
Hmm.
AI is going to have such an impact and already is on my business. I'm sure on yours as well. But if you're not implementing AI to some level, you're going to get left in the dust. But here's the
Yeah.
magic for someone like yourself. What it can't replace is the people that still want the local guy that can
Hmm.
come, sit across the table, shake their hand, and get a deal done. I find you're going to have more of that, people wanting
Hmm.
more of that, because people just want to feel like they have a human connection. So
Yeah.
as good as AI is, as much as it's going to help us be more efficient and be more cost effective, people are just going to get burnt out by it. So,
Hmm.
there's still going to be a place for it. I mean, I see a lot of like outreach, like AI outreach. I'm using it now in my business
Hmm.
with some SMS and some
Yeah.
cold call, some outbound calling. But I think that's going into 26. If you're not heavily using that, you're going to totally miss the bus. But yeah,
Yeah.
you're right. So we have vendors. You're right. Because if you're putting that on the seller to get pictures and stuff like that, even if you coach them, they're going to give you a picture of like the corner or some weird thing. And it's
Right.
like it's
Right.
granulated and they're using a Nokia phone still because they never upgraded for the
Yeah.
last 20 years.
Flip phone. They got their flip
Yeah,
phone
flip
out.
phone, right? It's like, 480p or whatever. It's like, bro,
Yeah.
what is that? So
Yeah.
we have a service that we pay. We have a few vendors that we use. Investor Boots is
Okay.
one of them that we've had really good success with. They're nationwide,
Hmm.
and they do exactly the way we ask. So we get a
That's
full
great.
scope of what's going on: pictures, videos, room sizes. It gives us a pretty good determination, and maybe 15 to 20% of the time, we may have to do some additional, digging. We find something, or there's something we aren't sure of, and maybe we
Yeah.
have to send a contractor out there to look at a foundation or something like that, right? So.
Okay. So you said that was Investor Boots.
Yeah,
Is
it's
that the name of
Investor
the company?
Boots with a Z. Yeah.
Okay. Good. Yeah, that'll be helpful for our listeners. So I do want to spend some time talking about mindset. But before we
Yeah.
get to that, I do have a question. You said that, well, two questions. One, after you get the property under contract, you said we contract first, verify second. So
Yes.
you're agreeing to price and terms over the phone, getting the contract signed with some due diligence, and then your people are going out and actually taking the pictures and verifying
Correct.
that everything's
Yep.
okay. All right. So, do you ever have to go back and change terms after you go out?
Oh, sure, that happens.
Yeah.
Matter of fact, we had a
Part of
story
the.
just recently in which we had gotten a property, and it was in a nice area here in Wisconsin, actually in the Milwaukee market, which is a great market. Don't come in my market, by the way.
Don't worry.
There's plenty of opportunity. I'm an abundance guy. And we
Yeah.
realized that even though the home was newer, it was built in the 2000s, which is fairly new for Wisconsin because there's a lot of old homes there.
Hmm.
The woman had lived there a few years. We thought, oh, this is a slam dunk. We'll come to find out. We walk in, or the person goes through, and it smells like cat. Well, come to
Mm.
find out, she had 6 cats in the house.
Mm.
And then talking with a little bit more, she's like, yeah, they kind of go in this one spot, but we're like, well, do you know that for sure? Like typically the cat goes outside of the box. They're probably going everywhere. And
Right.
so our understanding at that point is we have to replace all the floors. It had LVP in it, and we thought that would be good, but it's like, man, once you get that smell in the home, the
You
only
can't get it
way
out.
is to completely remove and or, specific for carpeting, you got to almost
Hmm.
put like a Kills or something down underneath to kind of get rid of that odor. So I just said,
Yeah.
like, listen, this was untold to us when we initially made our offer.
Hmm.
What would you like to do? And she's like, what do you mean? And I said, well, we have to do, we're still interested in the property. We like it a lot, but we can't pay that price. And here's kind of
Hmm.
what we can pay. And we were able to retrade or renegotiate, and it came down to it. So I think that the key with that, Brandon, is you have to have, if you do a good enough job on the front side, build rapport, have great
Hmm.
communication with the seller. These conversations, as much as like, oh, I don't want to come back and ask for this, it has to be
Yeah.
justifiable. I have
Right.
actually a guy who's worked for me for 3 years. He worked for a company that did it the other way. We're just
Mm.
not making a big enough spread, so they have to go squeeze grandma for an extra 5, 10K because they want to make the rip. And it's like
Right.
the number of times I've made less money because I will never do that. Now, if it's
Hmm.
justifiable, absolutely. But
Right.
in those cases, like we'll make our 5, but then we'll also make a 50K deal. So,
Yeah.
right now our average is 25K per wholesale, which is pretty healthy. And,
Yeah.
that's
It's
up a
great.
few grand from last year. So we're doing well. We're doing well.
Yeah. That's great. Second question, before we get into talking about mindset. So you get the property under contract, you have somebody go take pictures, you send it out to your buyers, and
Mhm.
then do you coordinate with the buyers to actually physically go see the property? Because I assume end buyer is not going to buy a property without walking through it and seeing it themselves. Is that the way it
Well, that's
works?
where you can assume wrong, Brandon. So one of the
Okay.
things that came out of COVID was you couldn't get into properties, right? So specifically in my
Yeah.
home market, my home market is the Green Bay Appleton area.
Hmm.
Um, and one of the things I've done is actually almost become now a staple in a lot of other investors kind of copied my blueprint is we just did virtual inspection. So what we did is I, for a time, would actually go and record a video of me walking through the property or someone walking through the property, and then I would
Yeah.
narrate it, saying, hey, here's what
Okay.
I'm seeing here. I would actually like share my eyes and what I'm seeing and here's some
Hmm.
thoughts. So
Hmm.
kind of giving them the feel like they're touring the property, but not
Hmm.
literally being there. So there's been a lot of deals we've done over the last 5 years
Hmm.
that people have bought quote unquote sight unseen. Now, of course, we'll give
Really?
them an opportunity to find a walkthrough and things like that. So it's not like they're walking in completely blind, but the
Yeah.
offers they're submitting are based upon without actually being inside the property. So see, that's
Okay.
a preconceived notion that I had initially that I had to almost get rid of with COVID because a lot of times people weren't going to let them in, right?
Hmm. Yeah.
So we were able to figure that. Now in other markets, people still want to get in there. We have one in the Madison market right now that people had to get their eyes on it, and that's fine. We'll
Hmm.
coordinate that. Typically, what we'll do in those situations, Brandon, is we'll block off windows of time with said sellers that, hey, we
Yeah.
need some partners and contractors to come through. Can you be gone from 2 to 3? We'll
Yeah.
put a lockbox on there, have them walk through. They can run their numbers and submit their offers. So we've done
Yeah.
it both ways, and both are equally successful.
Yeah. Yeah, that's great. Thanks for clarifying that. We
Yeah,
do.
no,
We've done a
absolutely.
lot of properties the same way, where we'll put it under contract, put a lockbox on it, but at the end of the day, the end buyer. I don't know if we've ever sold a property to an end buyer who didn't at least go do a final walkthrough. A lot of times, especially if it's a really good property in a good area, good price. So I'll have 20 people call me 5 minutes after we send it out, and
Right.
they're all dying to get the property. Somebody will put it under contract, no due diligence, non-refundable earnest money.
Mhm.
And then, they do want to go see it. And we have in our contract within 24 hours of closing, they can do a final walkthrough. So
Yep. Same
that's
here.
great.
Same here.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I'm sure we could spend hours talking about the nuts and bolts of the business, but I would love to go back. You mentioned this in our intro at the beginning when we were talking about mindset, and how that's really what opened the door for you, was a change of your mindset. You said that, when you'd get kind of knocked down, you'd hit a couple of speed bumps, what you thought were roadblocks. It
Yeah.
would take you a few months to recover. So I'd love for you to spend a little time telling us about that, and how you made that mind shift, and kind of what you're sharing with your students now about mindset, and having the right mindset.
Yeah. For sure, man. I think it all starts in kind of making this change and starting to. I've been in coaching now, I guess, real estate mentoring, teaching people for about 8 years, and only in the last
Okay.
probably year or two that have I kind of really put some of this together. But doing some research, I don't know where I found the statistics. So, but it's like 83% of real estate investors who get into real estate never do a deal, which
Really?
that was surprising to me.
Yeah,
It's like a
it
lot of
is.
people buy courses. I mean, there's not a shortage of that, right? And I've bought my fair share of stuff that I still have on shelves that maybe I've not implemented, from
Right.
storage to, creative financing, a lot of stuff, right? We sometimes can be consumers as investors, right?
Right. Yeah.
All good material, all great stuff. It's just I never implemented it. So, as I mentioned, the first 12 years was kind of just this ho hum thing. And what I realized, the real precipice of this was I had a situation coming out of COVID, or before COVID. I had some really good friends of mine, and they came to me and said, Dan, we love what you're doing. Like, I was kind of doing deals regularly in the market. They knew I was good at acquisitions, was never great at the business side. Like, I didn't understand the marketing and the numbers. That was not my thing. But you
Mm-hmm.
get me in front of a seller, I can sell. So they're like, how about you do acquisitions? We build out the business side, because they were effective at flipping properties and they really were intrigued in the wholesaling. They're like, hey, we
Mm-hmm.
can peel off some flips, split that. We'll do some wholesaling, generate some revenue. Worked out great. So we formed the business February of 2020, and
Okay.
literally a month later, the world shut down. We're like, what are we to do? And we're like,
Yeah.
well, we've already committed, right? Let's just see where the cards fall. And of course, the next few years were really good. We both
Mm-hmm.
made pretty good money. Things were going well, or so I thought. And then they got back from a mastermind, and the mastermind's like, you're needing to focus on things. So they came to me and said, Dan, we love you. We love being in business with you. We just don't want to be in the business anymore.
Hmm.
And that really hit me hard, Brandon,
Yeah.
because they had other things. They were in, commercial. They were doing some private money lending and a few other things. This was my bread and butter.
Hmm.
So I really had to get this put together. Now, I've learned a lot being in the business for 3 years and saw a lot of things that they did, but I still had some things preventing me. And the real catalyst for me is, call it God. I
Mm-hmm.
was scheduled to go to a Tony Robbins event,
Mm-hmm.
literally March of 23, because this happened in 2023.
Okay.
So I went there. My life was really just transformed, because what it did is it's unleashed the power within was the event. And the
Yeah.
whole idea is it has you go deep within yourself, is that you have the solutions inside. What's
Mm-hmm.
holding you back? What is the breakthroughs? And what I realized for me is I had so many self-limiting beliefs. A
Mm.
lot of it was based upon my childhood, how I was brought up,
Yeah.
experiences that I had. And I had to kind of see them for what they were: lies, because I knew what I wanted to be. So between this business dissolving and me just taking a line in the sand, being like, they're like, Dan, take as long as you want. We'll work through this. I'm like, no, let's rip the Band-Aid off. In 30 days, I need to have my business up and running. So a
Mm-hmm.
good friend of our group that's in this, Jerry Green, as you probably well know.
Yeah. I know,
Jerry's
Jay.
a awesome dude. I
Yeah.
talked to Jerry because I was kind of like, man, what am I going to do? He's like, you know what? Go all in, brother. And I was thinking like rebranding, because I had another entity at that point in time. He's like, why don't you just be like House Buyer Dan? I'm like, dude, that's golden. So I kind of
Mm.
took that idea from Jerry, just went with it, logoed it up, and then just built off of that. Took some of the tools from my old entity and just what I knew what to do. And I went
Mm-hmm.
from, maybe making a deal to a month to now making $500,000 in 8 months. And
Yeah.
really launched this thing with a combination of imperfect action, processes and systems. And I found a really good mentor at the time. So
Yeah.
those things allowed me to catapult my business. But the precipice was I had to get out of my own head,
Yeah.
Brandon, and know that those were lies and step into who I wanted to be, my true identity, which is a real estate investor. So I
Yeah.
am good with money. I am a deal maker, right? And the other thing was a personal thing. Like, I didn't feel like maybe I was a good father to my kids, right? But I was. My
Mm.
kids love me. A little
Mm-hmm.
backstory: my dad got into a bad accident when I was 4, so I never had a
Mm.
real man mentor in my life to kind of help
Mm.
me through things. So that kind of maybe impeded some of my personal relationships. So it's obviously a growth and process with all that stuff, but that was the real catalyst in shoring that up, and doing those things helped me grow my business. I'm like, well, what if I could teach people to do the same thing? So
Yeah.
that's what I do within my coaching program. I mean, the real estate stuff you can find anywhere. There's YouTube
Right.
University. What I teach, truthfully, isn't really all that impactful. But what I give people is the true secret sauce, which I think is the mindset shifts that are needed to have in your business in order to be able to push past the hard things. So
Yeah. Great. I love it. You mentioned earlier, take imperfect action, which we're all about. You know, you're never gonna know all the details of everything you're gonna do, but I think that, coupled with the third thing you said in that comment, was finding a mentor, which you did. Somebody who's done it, been down the road, can help you avoid a lot of the mistakes. You know, I've been doing it for 23 years in flipping houses, and I've made a lot of mistakes, and I've learned a lot. I've been through stuff with the bank. I've been through a couple of market cycles. Well, just like you have, you know, in your experience, you can share that with someone else, with one of your students, so they don't have to learn it the hard way. You can shortcut their learning process by telling them your experience and helping them work through that, so they don't have to go through it themselves.
yeah, I heard someone say this recently. You're going to pay either way. You know, mentorship's not free. There's a cost, right?
Right.
Either you pay that way or you pay the school of hard knocks.
Right.
And there's time, and time is money.
Yeah.
You know, for me, it was 12 years, Brandon. Like, it literally took me 12 years to figure this out. And it wasn't until I really got serious and I didn't have the cash to really have a mentor. I took a risk, and it was one of the best investments. And to this day, every time, and I've paid for a lot of mentorship over the last 3 to 5 years, and it's always paid me dividends. It's never failed me, because I listen to what they say, to your point. I take the imperfect action. I just tell them, I just follow what they tell me to do. And lo and behold, the stuff works. You know? So that's the biggest thing, is people have the fear to take the action. And I think that's what prevents them from really seeing the success that they could have.
Yep, I agree. So mindset thing, I love what you said there. And I worked through this as well. I think I sometimes call it an inner accuser. You know, there's a lot of things that people will call this, but I call it an inner accuser. And because of stuff that I dealt with growing up, or because of self-limiting beliefs, whatever that is for everybody, I think there's a voice playing. We call it a narrative sometimes, right? So we have a movie playing in our head of who I am, what I can do, what I can't do, what fears I have, whatever those things are. And then we see everything within that narrative. So something happens that could be completely unrelated, but because I have this narrative playing in my head, I make that example fit into the narrative that I have in my head. Yeah. And so for me, and I think similar to what you're saying, that inner accuser is always telling me, you're not going to be successful at that. You're not good enough. You're not going to live up to the expectation. What if you fail? You can't leave your 9 to 5, because if it doesn't work, you're going to go broke. All those negative thoughts. And a lot of people live there. I lived there for a long time. And I think, you know, I love Tony Robbins' power of positive thinking. I believe in that, although I don't think it's a religion like, you know, some people do. And I actually did. So I'm a Christian. I use the Bible as kind of my guide and my relationship.
Yep.
Praise the Lord. Yeah. So I actually went through this exercise personally. And then I had my son and his Bible study group do it last Sunday. And so I went through the Bible, and I think you can do this with other stuff too. This comes out of the power of positive thinking, and you know, positive self-talk, positive self-thought. But I went through the Bible and I wrote down, here's all the stuff that God says about his children. And I wrote it down on a little note card, and I kept that note card in my wallet for like 5 years. And every time I would catch myself going down this path of, you know, you're not good enough, you're not going to be successful, you're a terrible dad. If people really knew this or knew that, you know, they would think differently about you. Every time I would start to go down that path, I would take this note card out and I would say, well, this is what God says about me. If I believe what he says about me, he says that I'm chosen, that I'm loved, that I'm forgiven, that I'm, you know, adopted into his family. So I would take those thoughts, those negative thoughts, captive. And as scripture says, take your thoughts captive, make them obedient to the Lord. And so change my mindset. So that's from a faith perspective, but it sounds like it's also very true in the business world about having to take those negative thoughts captive. And how do you do that? So that was a long ramble there about my experience, but how do you do that in a business world?
A lot of the foundation of stuff. I mean, it's not in your face faith, but everything that I teach is faith principles. Like I give
Yeah.
Bible scripture behind it because I think the ultimate identity, truthfully, Brandon, is your identity in Jesus Christ. And if you don't
Amen.
have that, it doesn't matter what you have in the driveway, the size of your home, and the zeros in your bank account. That is
Yeah.
empty and frivolous. I
Yep.
think, what is it? Ecclesiastes calls it, what is the word? Dang it. It's all in vain, basically. It doesn't have any
Yeah.
purpose.
Chasing after the wind.
Right, after the win. Thank you.
Yeah.
So the reality is you have to start there, but you're absolutely correct because the important thing is what you just talked about is identity is like a muscle. And it can change over time. Like it's not a fixed thing and you're that thing forever. It's going to evolve, right? It's a moving target per se. But in order to step into, and one of the things that I teach ultimately is that you need to practice this. So exactly what you did. You went through the Bible, found statements about your identity in Christ of who God says I am. So
Yeah.
whenever the inner accuser that you say is telling you lies, aka the devil, the world, whatever, other
Yeah.
people, you can remind yourself, but this is who God says I am.
Right.
And you can step into that truth. And the more you do that, what it does, there's science behind this, bro. So you have neural pathways in your brain, right? And some of these old neural pathways, actually, Craig Kroschel wrote a great book. I can't remember it right now, but I think it's rewiring your brain or look it up. Craig Kroschel, but it's a mind thing. It's science
Yeah.
and faith. And what he talks about is you have like these old rutty roads that are basically within your brain, if you can think of it that way. And these are the bad things. Like, why do I always do this? Why do I react that way? But when you use scripture or truths about who you are, your identity, and reinforce that, you're almost like plowing that rutty road and putting super highways in your neural pathways that you can rewrite the way that you respond to things. So
Yeah.
case in point, I used to swear a lot when I was younger, like a sailor, right? I occasionally use it when necessary, but I don't necessarily use the F word as every other word out of my mouth like I used to, right?
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
how did that happen? I rewired my brain to not do that anymore. It's the same thing with our identity. So you do those things, you remind yourself, you practice it daily. That's how you step into who you really know who you are. And that's the power of change. And that's how you do these things. So what you
Yeah.
were doing was exactly what I help teach and show people to do within my coaching as well. So yeah, man, I
Yeah.
love
I
it.
love that.
That's awesome.
Yeah, I think one of the quotes that I probably won't hit it dead on, but what you believe the most important person in your life thinks about you changes how you think, and once you change how you think, it changes your action. And so I think that's exactly what you're saying about retraining yourself. And
Yeah.
for those of us, so I think that applies even if you don't have faith in Jesus, right? If you're not a Christian, for us, what we know that Jesus says about us, what he thinks about us as followers of his matters to us. It changes how we think, and therefore it changes our action. But even if you're not a follower of Jesus, I think whoever the most important person is in your life and what you believe they think about you changes how you think about yourself. I use the example with my son. So we have one 15-year-old son, and with his group, I use the example. If I'm one, I probably me and his mom, my wife, are probably the most important people in his life. If he thinks that I'm proud of him, that I love him, that I'm behind him, that I encourage him, that there's nothing he can do that's going to hurt our relationship, no matter what, then he thinks a certain way and he has actions a certain way.
Yes.
On the other hand, if he thinks that I'm mad at him, that I'm disappointed in him, that he hasn't lived up to my expectation, that I'd hoped more for his life, that's what he thinks that I feel about him, then he's going to think negatively of himself and his actions are going to show it. And so same thing in business. And I love that you coach this with your students is the world will tell you what you can't do, how you can't be successful, how it's not going to work for you. It works for everybody else, but it's not going to work for you. And I know what you tell them is, hey, I believe in you. I know you can do it. I can help you do it, and try to help them rewire their thinking.
Absolutely. And I take it a step further with what you're saying, because at the end of the day, I teach this as well. There's two things that you control at the end of the day. It's your actions and your attitudes. That's pretty much it, right?
Yeah.
Like we get a lot of stimuli that come our way. I mean, heck, we get the freaking box that we hold around in our hands all day that gives us a lot of stimuli, good, bad, or indifferent.
Right.
But we get to choose how we respond, right? So the
Yeah.
reality is, if your attitude sucks, how many times have you went through the motions, right? I just did this and you didn't feel like it was worth anything. But if your attitude or your state is aligned, the actions are going to be way more impactful, right? So to your point, like, we can choose if something happens to us. If, like you said, well, how does someone think about me? That's important to realize that, but then how are you going to respond? And that's even
Hmm.
more impactful in a husband, wife, or a personal relationship, because sometimes there's communication that
Yeah.
happens. Even for me and my wife, we've been married, thank goodness, 26 happy years coming into February, right? And
Awesome.
28 together. But even
Yeah.
us have our moments where it's like, you're just two opposite humans living together in the same home. You have that, but it's
Hmm.
communication, and then understanding, like, why am I responding this way? So a lot of the journey I've been going on recently is like, why do I respond that way? And I
Hmm.
realized there's some things in my past that perhaps I've not dealt with. So I'm working through some of those things so I can be better to not respond in maybe a hostile way or off the cuff comment, things like that. But it's the same way with business. So when things come our way and we realize, like, I just got a call here a moment ago from a title company on something we're supposed to be closing as we speak, realizing that, hey, something's probably going wrong, where years past I would flip out and be like, hey, Brandon, I got to take this call. It's going to
Hmm.
work out, right? So I
Yeah.
know these things. I choose to react the way that I know I need to. And the more you understand that, the better you understand self, in addition to your identity with Christ. That's where you become really powerful and can do
Yeah.
unbelievable things outside of business and in your personal life.
Absolutely. Yeah. I love this conversation could have spent a lot of time talking the nuts and bolts of business. And at the end of the
Yeah.
day, business is people, right? Business
Amen.
it's not living. It doesn't have a personality,
Mhm.
but the people who run it do. And so I think having a conversation like this is more important. Like you said, YouTube University, you can go find everything there is to know about wholesaling, virtual wholesaling, flipping.
Yeah.
You can find that out there. It's out there. It exists. The
Hmm.
difference is that for those of us who coach and have students that we care about, we
Hmm.
want to see them succeed, and we understand the business is a piece of it. And yes, we're going to help you figure out the business. But more importantly, what you teach is that getting the right mindset, becoming the right person,
Yeah.
that it will help you succeed in business. Because at the end of the day, business is all about the people.
Amen, brother. I would agree with you 100%, whether it be your internal customers or your external customers.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
It's awesome. So, thank you.
Yeah.
It's been a great conversation. I've enjoyed it, getting to know you and hear a little
Thank
bit
you.
more. How do people get in touch with you if they want to join your program and have you
Yeah.
coach them on mindset and virtual wholesaling? How can they find you?
I love it. Yeah, absolutely. You can go to danahlborn.com. Matter of fact, if you go there, you can sign up, get a free ebook that kind of gives
Okay.
you 5 steps of how to integrate mindset and business together, right? So that's there
Yeah.
now. Otherwise, recommend follow me on the socials. On Instagram, it's at Dan Ahlborn, just like you see on the screen, Ahlborn. I'm also on Facebook by the same handle. You can check me out on YouTube. I got a bunch of stuff out there. A lot of my stuff on YouTube is faith related. That's just my
Hmm.
forum I use to kind of share my thoughts on just life and scripture and stuff like that. Not really even real estate focused, but that's just where I go. So yeah, I'd love to connect with you and talk. And if it can be a blessing in any way, shape, or form, reach out, send me a DM, and we can go from there.
Yeah, it's great, Dan. Thank you. I'll also put the link to the free ebook. Thank you for offering
Awesome.
that. That's awesome for all
For
the
sure.
listeners. So I'll put the
Absolutely,
link
brother. I
in there.
appreciate it. Yeah.
Let them go and get the free ebook and do some learning and hopefully connect with you as well on some of
Thanks,
your
dude.
social media.
Sounds
Well,
good, man.
Dan, thank you. Yeah, thank you for joining me today. It's fascinating. I look forward to talking again soon, and I appreciate you very much.
You bet, man. Take care.
All right, you too. Talk to you soon.